Good evening. Welcome to the Salem Area Mass Transit District's January board meeting. We are convening here at Courthouse Square. It is now a little after 6:30. Let us begin by Linda. She'll note the attendance for us, and then we can jump right into the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Bush, could you lead us in that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Bush. General Manager Pollock, could you lead us through the safety moment thought for the day?
Yes, thank you. So the safety theme for the month of January is near miss reporting. So what is a near miss? So a near miss is an unplanned event that did not result in injury, illness, or damage, but it has the potential to do so. A near miss is an opportunity to correct potential problems before a more serious incident occurs. An incident can amount to thousands of dollars in lost time, work time, or in repairs, not to mention the human suffering involved. Simple reporting and corrections of near misses can keep everyone safe. Near misses or close calls are often occur multiple times before a serious accident occurs. Reporting near misses early can prevent simple things from turning into serious incidents. So take a moment to think about a close call or near miss as your role here in the facility or other transit locations that you may have experienced, or even an accident you know almost happened a number of times before it finally did. Make sure you take the time to report near misses and close calls. It's important and can prevent future accidents. So for the board, if you have something to report, just report that to me and I will take it from there. And that concludes our safety moment.
Thank you very much. Are there any announcements or changes to the agenda? Okay. Next up is public comment, and we have Connie Griffiths wrote down that she would like to provide public comment. Thank you for coming and being willing to share public comment with us.
Please, if you allow me to sit, you can read it.
Please.
Good evening. I'm Miss Connie's Children's Foundation, and I'm Miss Connie. And I grew up here, no secret now. I am officially out your public benefactor in the state of Oregon. I have been here now as Miss Connie's Children's Foundation 6 years. I don't hide. I'm born Army, my husband Army. I was command of Europe. I had a stroke behind the job. There is no communist wall or anybody give more for Russia and the whole world to be free than my family. We serve, and we're out of your backwoods here, please. My dad's 47 years building inspector off Toledo, Oregon, Akina Bay. My brother just retired out of Hillsboro. He's the plans examiner. But I'm Griff Septic Service out of Portland, and I own it, and I have a bad American woman attitude, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm back in college. I don't know what it is, what I'm going to be when I grow up, but if I have to hire a few more lawyers and doctors and teachers to get there, let's get the job done, please, because you will not hear excuses from me. And I cannot grow in the state of Oregon or build you this country without chariots and a bus and transportation. And I've been pushing you, and you're my first line of defense for disaster, because you guys, I know all your bus drivers, please, on your routes and things, you'll be the first one to get the kids out. Now the rest, somebody else will have to come in for. I'm not prepared for that. Or I have heavier guys, bring in the National Guard. But I'm with Paul Evans. He said hello tonight. We're working on your disaster preparedness over there in West Salem. I am now on your bridge committee to build you that. That's my 7th bridge. Mentor Park Bridge looks real good, and I'm in Oregon Parks. And I introduced myself in not so nice a way, but I was not so much at risk here today. And transportation important. And so is Oregon to me. And it's the Oregon way of life, and it's the homeless. If they're all in my head, I'm crazy. But I'm not. And I have ideas for this, and if you'll allow me to continue my work in cooperation, I'll continue to build you everywhere I'm at. And if I'm at the city council, out of 45 speeches, mine made the news. You know, let's tell it like it is. I may swear sometimes, and oh, I do her bad, but I won't lie my salvation. And no, I'm not politically correct all the time, or am I your traditional woman or in a traditional field? I'm telling you now who I am. Please, thank you. I'm Miss Connie, and I'm a human rights activist, and I always tell them I'm a bitch in caps because I'm highly successful.
Thank you very much, Ms. Connie.
Well, I apologize for that, but that, I put it out everywhere, and I put you guys out too. And on the news, anywhere I am, I represent you.
Thank you very much.
Whether I'm in Europe, I'm here to serve. And I am because I'm my daddy's daughter.
Thank you, Ms. Connie.
Really, I'm honored.
Thanks.
And I hope I didn't offend, but hey, you guys are doing a fine job. 10 years, man. Take the hit, you know, stand up and say victory tonight. I am. I don't know how I'm standing here, but you guys deserve an applaud.
Thank you.
You did not get the support you deserved.
Thanks.
But I will make sure it continues, as long as I'm alive.
Excellent. Okay. Next up on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there, if it's okay with the board, we can go ahead and approve the consent calendar.
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Great. We have a motion.
Second.
We have second. Are there any questions or discussion, excuse me? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent calendar is approved. Next up is the adoption of the 2020 state legislative agenda, and I will excuse myself here from the dais and join Dale Penn down below. Good evening, Vice President Carney, members of the board. Myself and Dale Penn here, we are representing the legislative subcommittee. As you may recall, a subcommittee was created not too long ago that was tasked with identifying and bringing forward to this body a legislative agenda for this upcoming short legislative session. And so we met several weeks ago, and we've put together an agenda which you have in your packets, but also is projected up there. And just a little bit of background, for those of you that have served on the board previously, this won't be too different. This is something that you've done before, but this is an opportunity for us as a board to explain what our priorities are. So Dale and his associates, when they lobby on our behalf at the state capitol, they're empowered to be able to make nimble decisions to represent us and the community effectively. And then if issues arise that are not addressed in this scope, Dale or General Manager Pollock are able to bring those to our attention for quick action. So, but hopefully this kind of legislative agenda, which identifies our key priorities, is able to take into account most of those issues. So as I mentioned, the legislative committee met. That included myself, Director Bush, and Vice President Carney. Dale and his team were present, as we also had staff from Cherriots. And we discussed several different options which are presented here in the state legislative agenda. I will note that the federal legislative agenda is forthcoming. There's still one or two issues that we need to address, and ultimately we will return and present those for your approval at a later date. So here on the legislative agenda, you see on the left-hand side, there's different priority levels, and those are high priorities are priority 1, lower priority are priority 2, and then priority 3 are, along with priority 2, are things that we want to just keep our eye on. So as you can see, priority one is making sure that the implementation of House Bill 2017, which brought Cherriots and other public transit agencies quite a bit of money and allowed us to expand Saturday service and then also weekday evening service. So we want to make sure that that is being implemented correctly and that it's serving our community appropriately. Also, the STIF and STF consolidation, and then as we were briefed at a prior meeting, the clean fuels exchange. So ensuring that those clean fuel credits that we have are able to be utilized here in the agency. And then we're also keeping an eye on the electric vehicles, cap and invest, which of course is a hot button issue. And then we want to also take a look at the I-5 bridge, which will cross into Washington. That is a potentially expensive project, and we want to make sure that we are protected, our financial support from the state is protected, and that it's not rated and used in something like that. And then also TNC legislation, transportation network companies like the Ubers and Lyfts, just tracking that. And then also the Volkswagen settlement. Those are things that we want to keep our eyes on. So that is our 2020 state legislative agenda. Dale Penn is here to answer any questions. He, of course, has the on-the-boots expertise. He's in the building advocating for us. But before I formally presented this, I wanted to see if Director Bush or Vice President Carney had anything to say that I maybe didn't touch on.
I don't think I do.
Okay.
There was the pre-legislative meetings that
Legislative days?
the Joint Committee on Transportation met. Did you want to touch base on that, or is that at a different time?
Sure. I can provide a little bit of information on the joint legislative days, which happened Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday of last week. Traditionally, before a legislative session, lawmakers meet a couple weeks beforehand and they open up committees, they do informational hearings, they talk about some of the things that are going to come forward during the session. In this case, we have a short session. It begins on February 3rd. It can go for constitutional 35 days, and then it will sine die. During the organizational days last week, there was some conversation around one of our highest priority issues, the STIF/STIF consolidation conversation. The committee which Alan served on, Director Pollock, or General Manager Pollock served on, provides a framework for legislators to merge those two different funds, which are uniquely different and serve different populations and have different requirements around how they raise and spend the investment dollars. And so the legislature, during the short session, will approve statutory language in an omnibus bill, hopefully, in the Department of Transportation omnibus bill, and will officially merge those. And so last week we had a conversation where Julie Brown, who is the general manager of Rogue Valley Transit District, also a former Oregon Transit Association chair, presented on the recommended changes. And so the committee had some good questions. It went very well, and we are very supportive of the language moving forward in that set of recommendations. So the only other things I will add to what Ian shared was that on our 2020 state legislative agenda, those priority levels, a priority one, if a bill comes up or an issue comes up around priority one, we view that as something where a board member, where General Manager Pollock, one of you in a leadership position at Salem Kaiser Transit would come forward potentially and testify. A level two, I view it as CFM or General Manager Pollock potentially testifying. And level three, we really are just monitoring those. And if something were to arise in those conversations around the I-5 bridge replacement or TNC that impacts us, we bring it forward. We may elevate that subject matter. But next Monday, we will have all the bills released for legislative session. I will review those, send them to General Manager Pollock to review, and then the Legislative Committee, and we'll assign priorities, and then we'll start tracking those bills. We'll receive a few more the first week of session, but because session is so short, we have deadlines the second week of session, and so things are going to move very fast, and this agenda gives us the ability to react quickly. So thank you very much for considering it today.
Thank you.
So I would ask that you, the board, accept our recommendations and approve them. So I guess, Vice President?
Do we move that?
Does he have to be up here to do that?
No,
Okay.
Actually, can I make the motion?
you're the president.
Okay,
I
well,
think so.
okay. So I move that we approve the 2020 state legislative agenda as projected there in our packets.
I'll second that.
Great. Yes.
Okay, I'll call the vote. All those is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any
Yeah.
opposed?
Now I see what that prompt was for.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
fine. Okay, I think that passes. Thank you very much. Next up, Director Pollock, could you explain to us the next action item?
Sure, I'd ask our Chief Operating Officer, David Trimble, to please present the staff report on a contract amendment for transit operator uniforms.
So, good evening, excuse me, President Davidson and members of the board. So I'm here this evening to discuss authorization for the general manager to execute a contract amendment with Marco Ideas Unlimited for the purchase of transit operator uniforms. So, as you all may know, in accordance with our district policy, transit operators are always required to be in uniform when performing the duties of the district. And those uniform items are prescribed in our labor agreement. So we are currently operating under a uniform contract with Marco Ideas Unlimited for a 1-year base term, 2 one-year option contract, which was awarded through a competitive solicitation process in 2017. So because we are exercising the second 1-year option of that contract, the contract total amount now requires board approval, which is why I'm here this evening. So the increased dollar amount for the last year option is $78,000, which will bring the total contract amount to $170,500, which will terminate in October of this year. So staff will actually begin a new request for a proposal solicitation that will be in process later this year, probably in the summer, and the results of that solicitation will be brought before this board for approval. So staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract amendment with Marco Ideas Unlimited for the purchase of transit operator uniforms in the not-to-exceed total contract amount of $170,500. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve this action item?
I moved that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract amendment for $78,000 with Marco Ideas Unlimited for transit operator uniforms with a not-to-exceed total contract amount of $170,500.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the general manager's report.
Thank you. I have a few items. So you'll see in your packet a handout that was placed at your tabletop today. It's titled January 2020 Information for Board of Directors. I would like to point to the weekday ridership gains. As you can see, for the period September through December of 2018 as compared to 2019, weekday, and weekday only, this does not include the new Saturday service, ridership was up 10.1% for our local service and 11% for our regional service. So outstanding start for the new service. And when we get to the next quarterly report and see the total ridership that includes Saturday, those percentages will go even higher. But it'd be unfair to compare 6 days to 5 days. So this shows the weekday. You could also see in this report the increased usage of our passes, and I would highlight the youth passes, because if you remember, you took action last year to reduce the youth fares pretty significantly to allow more youth to ride, and they are riding, I can tell you that. So some good news. So when you're out and about, this is good news to share with your constituents. I would also note you have some upcoming events. February 12th, for those that are able to attend, Mayor Bennett will have his annual State of the City report. And then for those that signed up, as a reminder, the February 19th Council of Governments annual meeting will be at the Kaiser facility. I would also add that as President Davidson mentioned earlier, the federal legislative agenda will be coming to you next month. And the important piece of that is some discussion on vehicle procurements. I can tell you the Federal Transit Administration's 5339 lower no emission grant opportunity has opened for actually a couple days ago, and we have until March 17th to submit that grant. And then shortly after that, we're expecting to see the 5339 discretionary grant application grant opportunity period to open. So that's the importance of having that agenda finalized. I guess, and the only other thing I would add that I sent it out, I think, in my last week report, but I've completed my term as the Oregon Transit Association chair. So I think I've been the chair for 5 of the last 8 years. So we have a brand new chair. I'm looking forward to see how she shapes the association. As Andy Howell, the general manager for the State of Canby's service, and so she takes over beginning next month. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you. Next up are the board reports, and so members of the board, I would draw your attention to page 13 in our agenda packet. Here we have a breakdown of the different board and committee assignments, and I was thinking that we could go progressively through that list. So for the Board of Directors Executive Committee, I can report out that we are developing a long-term work plan for General Manager Pollock that we will ultimately bring to the board at a future date. And then for next up is the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. I can also report that Sean O'Day, the Executive Director for the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, has announced his resignation. If he hasn't already left, he's leaving sometime this week. And he's been a great asset to the COG. They've appointed an interim executive director and are currently beginning the process of doing a nationwide search for a new executive director. So that's something to keep your eyes out for. We work quite a bit with the COG, so just wanted to flag that as a notice. Next up is the Salem-Kaiser Area Transportation Study. Director Carney or Krebs?
We haven't had any meetings.
Okay, easy enough. And then the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, I can speak a little, and then maybe Director Bush, you could.
We did that already, didn't
We might have. We sure did. They haven't met this year yet.
we? You're right.
You're right.
They did not meet yet.
Yep,
And they
never mind.
canceled. December was a long time ago.
Yes, a whole year ago. And then Director Richards, if you're available on the phone, If you have anything to report on the State Transportation Improvement Fund or the State Transportation Fund?
They didn't meet, so.
Oh, they didn't meet. Never mind. Thank you, Director Richards. And for those watching at home, Director Richards is tuning in by phone. That's why if you hear a disembodied voice, that's where it's coming from. So, the Citizens Advisory Committee, Director Bush.
They did not meet.
Okay, easy enough. And then our Salem.
Shortest meeting ever.
Yeah. City of Salem also, I think, yep, did not meet. Okay. And then lastly, if there's any neighborhood association reports that you all would like to flag. I attended one recently, but there's not really anything to report from that particular neighborhood association. Director Carney, others?
Outside of the neighborhood association, I did meet with a constituent in the Grant neighborhood who is along Winter Street, the Family Greenway, which is also the route on which we have performed ADA improvements at the stops, and they had some concerns about the process that had been used by the transit district in placing those stops. So we'll follow up on that with a separate conversation.
Director Bush?
The two neighborhood associations did not meet in December, and then the two I represent met on the same night this month. So the Southeast Kaiser Neighborhood Association didn't talk about transit much, but they had a good conversation about the Kaiser Community Food Bank and its relationship in the area. So that was interesting. And then the second one, I caught in on their conversation about the Miracle on 14th, the lights in the Kaiser Gubser neighborhood area. So, and the amount of, I don't know how much money they raise, but their money goes to the Marion County Food Bank. So that was all they talked about.
Great,
It's done fast.
thanks. Director Krebs?
Well, I attended a couple neighborhood associations and basically just gave them an update on our services and ridership and so forth.
Great.
And do that every month.
Perfect. Thank you. And with that, I believe that concludes our meeting. So, no.
If you wanna, do you want me to do board calendar?
Oh, yes, please.
Just one comment before you leave. I see the I-5 bridge is one of our priorities here in the state for your funding on the stuff that you have.
That's correct.
Are we really going to see that bridge over the Columbia River this time?
We'll wait and see. We'll have to,
That's what I'm saying, I'm still waiting.
Yeah. you and me both.
Come on, we got some adversity here, we can overcome it together.
Yep, thank you. General Manager Pollock, could you do the calendar review?
So, yeah, just so in your packets, there's a 3-month review of upcoming events of note, as well as upcoming board meetings. I just want to highlight a few items. So, as we said earlier in the legislative session, so the February 3rd, the session opens. We are closed for President's Day, and there will be no bus service on this holiday this year. We will begin all the holiday services after the May service enhancements. That's all I want to share on that. On upcoming meetings, just note, as you know, beginning in 2020, we combined the work sessions and the board meetings into a single night. There was no work session for this month, but however, just for your calendars, we will be having a work session in February. And this is a living document, so it's changed a little bit. For the work session, we'll be focusing on the Polk County Flex Service Plan, and we'll be bringing the first draft of my work plan, and there's also some governance matters. And then at the board meeting, we have our Q2 reports, as well as potential contracts for consulting services and vehicles, and our federal legislative agenda. And then in March, we will have a work session on mobility as a service. We're calling it 101, but it's just to start introducing the board to all the different concepts of what mobility as a service means to help prepare us for future discussions. And that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you. And then lastly, one last thing before we adjourn for the evening, I wanted to turn the time over to Director Bush to highlight Kaiser's first citizen.
Okay. I wasn't able to attend, but Hirsch Sangster, a former director on the board in this position for Subdistrict 2, was named Kaiser's first citizen by the Kaiser Chamber of Commerce, and the party was on Saturday. He was honored. He served Cherriots Board from 2005 to June of 2009, elected treasurer from 2007 until 2009. He was appointed to a 3-year term on the Budget Committee in December 2013 and served a second term to June 30, 2019. He's elected the Budget Committee Secretary in 15 and 16 and as the chair for 3 years from the 17 till 19 last year. He's a tremendous advocate for bikes in the area. He was part of refounding Southeast Kaiser Neighborhood Association, in which I am a member of as well. He's been a great mentor. Way back in 15, when I was thinking about running for this position, he was this is how you do it, this is what you need to do and what you need to say, and he coached me through a lot of things. So I really appreciate and I'm excited that he has been given this honor. So, way to go, Hirsch.
Thank you. And Hirsch, if you're watching, congratulations. So, all
He
right.
was totally fooled.
Yeah. With that, yes.
Did you want me to report on the Kaiser Chamber Government Affairs Committee?
Sure, please do.
Okay. So the Kaiser Chamber Government Affairs Committee, which I'm the liaison for through this board, met on January 15th, and it was Commissioner Kevin Cameron spoke on the Marion County updates and their legislative agenda, and then they talked about the Oregon Clean Air Act in response to cap and trade and all of that. And trying to site a landfill is going to be very difficult if things are, see, now I'm all confused. But okay, so there's the big discussion of what to do with our trash, and so we talked about all of that and how maybe the cap and trade is going to affect that. And then other legislative priorities were the court care bill, where Polk County contracts for for children to be taken care of while parents are going through the court system and trying to get their lives back on track. So that's going through the legislature. They're looking for the baseline funding for parole and probation, the Justice Reinvestment Act, and then LEAD grants funding, and I don't remember what LEAD stands for.
Law Enforcement Assistant Diversion.
Thank you. So he cited several accomplishments: the juvenile building ribbon cutting, public safety building, their IT projects, and the growing population of our county and how that's all affecting the homeless situation. So that's been a huge topic in many of the places I've visited, is the decisions affecting the homeless, how to help solve the issue. So, and that's it.
Great. Thank you, Director Bush. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.